I bet you didn't think that Brighton and Hove Albion were the second best team in the Premier League. And yep, that is right. Okay, yes, there's a Premier League table that might say otherwise, but I've got the real reason why Brighton are doing much better than maybe all of us had thought. Welcome to Seagulls Central. My name is Adam MacDonald and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you're new here, thank you very much for clicking on this video. As I always say, if you find yourself coming back to this channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please hit that button below, turn your notifications on, get a like in, get the comments in, and get involved in what is, as I always say it with me, the fastest growing Brighton Hove Albion fan community out there on social media. Now, I wanted, international break. It's rough out here. We've not got a lot to talk about when it comes to Brighton. And I think it's been quite useful, in the sense that it's been been good to give us a period of time to reflect, to think back about the first three games where Brighton have maybe done well, where things haven't gone so well, how we can improve. And I think this next little run of games, while it looks a little bit harder than maybe our first three, I think will really give us a good idea of how this season's going to play out for Albion. Of course, we're now seeing the start of the European competitions beginning, the Champions League, Europa Conference, Europa League. Many teams in the Premier League are going to be competing in that. And I think, let's say by the next international break, which by the way isn't even far away, flipping heck, it's so annoying, we'll probably have a really good idea. 9-10 games in, we'll know how this season's going to pan out for us. So, but the reason I'm kind of coming onto this video today is because I was made aware of some stats from Opta Analysts. Now, if you don't know Opta, they're the kind of stats company that the Premier League use, loads of other sports use them. And they've got, a system called Opta Analysts where they've got their Premier League table. And you can look at the actual Premier League table, you can look at the expected Premier League table, and you can look at the predicted Premier League table. And they've just released this. Now, the actual Premier League table, we all know this. Brighton, where are they? I think they're 10th at the moment. Yeah, Brighton in 11th, okay? So obviously 4 points on the board. Obviously, we had that draw on the opening day against Fulham. We lost against Everton, and then we beat Man City. And I think it did really change the complexion of the first few games of the season. The kind of start of the season made us feel maybe a little bit better about how we'd started. The stats from Opta say this, that Brighton, in an expected Premier League table, so this is based on the expected goals measurement, so how many goals, based on the chances we've had, we should have scored, how many assists we should have created, how many goals we should have conceded, how many big chances we have created, how many points we should have, based on all of the statistics, based on all of the metrics around the way we play, the quality of our chances, the quality of our build-up, the quality of our opposition, what we should have done based on our first three games of the season. And Brighton should be sitting in second place, only behind Chelsea. And when you get into the stats, it's really, really interesting. So I'll get into them quickly now. So Brighton in second place compared to their 11th place that they're actually in. Chelsea expected first place, actually in second place. Interesting, Liverpool, who are top of the table with 9 points out of 9, are all the way down in 10th place. Should have only got 4 points in terms of their expected points so far this season. But for Brighton, our expected points, 5.8. Now, you compare that to what we got, 4, and they're essentially saying they think we should have got around 6 points, which would be 2 wins and a defeat. So they reckon we should have beaten, I presume, the game against Fulham. We should have beaten Man City and probably that Everton game. Or maybe they think the Everton game was a game we should have won. Man City was a game we should have won. And maybe Fulham was a game we should have lost. Either way, in terms of the league, in terms of goals for, only one other team has a higher XG in terms of goals scored that should have been scored and expected goals. Only Chelsea have a better XGF, expected goals for, at 6.7. Brighton in 6.2. And then the drop-off after that is quite significant. The team below us, 6.4, and then it keeps going down. So Brighton have the second best expected attack in the league. So what does that speak to? It speaks to the fact that Brighton are creating some very good chances, getting some very good positions. The build-up play is brilliant. The quality of the chances are strong. Weirdly, though, when you look at the flip side of this, expected goals against, Brighton should have conceded 4.2. Now, you compare this to some of the other teams around them in this table. Chelsea in first place, expected to concede only 2.4 goals. Now, we're essentially kind of nearly double that. And compared to the teams around us, the third place team, which is actually Bournemouth on the expected table, only expected to concede 2.9, Arsenal only 2.2, but Brighton, we're there at 4.2, so quite a significant jump in kind of the expected goals against it. So what does that say? I suppose that it means whilst we've looked very good going in attack, and it looks like we've created a lot of chances and we've been very good going forward, actually, it reckons kind of defensively, statistically, we have given away quite a few big chances and we should have conceded more goals than the teams around us. Now, you compare that to the actual table and where Brighton sit, obviously in 11th place, and the goals against being 4 goals. So it's actually not too different to kind of how we actually have lined up. They're saying we should have expected to have conceded 4.2 goals. We've conceded 4. We should have scored. We have scored 3 goals, and we should have scored 6.2 goals. So actually, we kind of should have scored double the amount of goals. The points we're on, you compare it, 5.8, so basically 6 points versus 4 points. It reckons we should have had a better start to the season. So what does this speak to? I think it probably does speak to the attack and the fact that we're playing pretty well in terms of attack. And look, let's go back to the Everton game. Now, I know that was a game where I came out of it and said it was a highly disappointing game. It was a bitterly disappointing game and actually quite a poor performance. I do stand by that in the sense that I don't think Brighton managed the game well. I don't think we managed the occasion well. I think in terms of we created quite a lot of chances. I don't think we ever particularly in that second half looked like we were going to score. You think about the lack of zip we seem to have in attack, particularly in that second half. It was depressing. But I think you got to look to that first half and the quality of chances that Brighton had then. The way we hit the bar through, players like Karu Mitoma, players like Jan-Paul van Hecke. You think about the Fulham game where in that second half we really did come into our own after what was a pretty turgid first half. Actually, Brighton looked like a very good attacking side in that second half of that game. Man City, obviously that game spoke for itself. I think a lot of that XG and the expected points and the chances we created would have come in that kind of second half of the second half after around 60 minutes or so, where Brighton really took the game to Man City and I think really got in their faces. So I think in terms of attack, we can feel pretty positive. I think it's been a decent start to the season in that regard. Yes, we've had a lot of the conversations around should someone like Seamas be coming in? Should Danny Welbeck be playing? Have we made a mistake in letting Evan Ferguson go? Do we have a proper number 9? Obviously, I made that video about João Pedro a few days ago where we're talking about the impact, since he's gone. Brighton do look like a different outfit going forward in terms of who we play up front. Absolutely, things are different, but you think about the way we've played, the chances we've created, that we've looked very, very good going forward. The impact of players like Brian Gruder coming off the bench, Minteh with his directness running at players, obviously Mitoma as well being so direct in himself. So maybe I think in the long term or even in the medium term for this season, it's maybe about ensuring we can kind of neutralise things a little bit in terms of defence, because it seems like we are kind of giving away a lot more chances than that which we've conceded, which I suppose maybe shows actually good defending if you're giving away a lot of chances but they're not actually conceding them. Maybe does that say your goalkeeper's doing really well? What does that speak to? Does that actually maybe speak to your setup not being brilliant because the way you're playing is kind of inviting a lot of big chances against you? I don't know. As I've said, I'd be really interested to see how the shape of the defence is going to evolve over the next kind of 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Are we going to see a player like Buscagli come into that, back line? Are we going to see someone like Coppola come into that back line? Are we ever going to move into a back 3? How will, the back 4 or back 5 kind of change as we move into the season? Obviously, permanently losing players like Tariq Lamptey, making the right back position maybe one where we're only fighting between Joel Veltman and Matt Weaver. Does Ferdy Kadioglu play there? I'm really itching to get back to seeing Brighton because I'm quite intrigued as to how we're going to continue to set up in this second kind of wave after the international break. Will Seamas be deemed as fit enough, as sharp enough, as ready enough to come in and maybe be involved against Bournemouth? Will we see Gruder from the start in the Bournemouth game? You'd think you'd have to, particularly after performances we've seen, against Man City. Obviously, he was involved and had a good camp for Germany under 21s in the international break. So I'm itching to see how we're going to line up. Does Ferdi Kadioglu stake his claim at right back at any point? Does he fight at left back against someone like Maxim de Kuiper? And can Brighton actually achieve what's been expected of them in this expected table so far? Interestingly, alongside the actual table and the expected table, opt to also have the predicted table, which is, okay, our expected table is, based on what we've seen in the first 3 games, this is what you should have achieved. The predicted table is based on what we've seen in the first 3 games, and this is what will happen in 34, 35 games time when the season ends. And they have Brighton finishing in 8th place with expected points of around 54, 55 points. We have a 0.99% chance of winning the Premier League title. They reckon we've got a 13% chance of finishing in Champions League football and a 7.18% chance of finishing the Europa League. Interestingly, they've got Liverpool to win the league. They've got Crystal Palace to finish in 5th place, which I find crazy considering the impact that they're going to have, through European competition. Newcastle in 6th place, Bournemouth in 7th place, and then Brighton. So that would achieve European football, but for a team kind of below that winning a trophy. And I think we've got to hope that doesn't happen. I actually do have a little bit more faith. I think Brighton are more likely going to be challenging for that kind of 6th or 7th position. And I think that's probably where we'll find ourselves at the end of the season. But the headline is that so far this season, Brighton are the 2nd best team in the league, creating a fabulous number of chances. We should have really got 2 more points out of the games we've played in. But maybe we look a little bit suspect defensively. Let me know what you think. Do you think Brighton have had a better start to the season than maybe we all kind of thought at the start? Do you think maybe there's been a bit of catastrophizing among the Brighton fans around kind of how we're looking at the start of the season? Do you feel a renewed sense of optimism? Has this international break given you a space to think and reflect and feel a bit better about the Albion and where they're going to finish? How have things lined up compared to how you thought Brighton would fare before we'd kicked a ball at the start of the season? Let me know what you think. As always, if you got this far in the video and you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get in the likes, get in the comments, and let me know your thoughts. I will see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, up the Albion.